Targeting Truth, Spiritual GPS.
We've seen the problem of sin is real. Separation from God is the most serious condition in which a person could be found. There's a tendency to put only the worst sinners in that category so that we can feel safe. Surely Hitler, child abusers, murderers, those guys are headed for hell. But I'm a good guy. I'm okay. That's wrong. The scripture doesn't let us off the hook. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." This is quite scary for the honest person, to realize that I'm separated from God, to realize that God doesn't hear my prayers, to understand that if I died right now, I'm destined for hell. This is something that I must get resolved, and the sooner the better. However, there's a nagging question in the back of my mind before I deal with myself. What about children? Where do they stand with God? Common sense would tell us that a baby's born innocent. Common sense says that only adults would be accountable before God. Truth and common sense usually match up, so the curious ask, what does the Bible say? A primary doctrine that's taught in the religious realm is called original sin. The idea behind this teaching is that when Adam sinned, every descendant from that time on inherited his sin. Thus, this doctrine maintains we're born sinners, and as such are in trouble with God. The common verse used to support this doctrine is Romans 5:12. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men, because all sinned. However, notice that this verse doesn't say that we're all accountable for Adam's sin. On the contrary, we are accountable because all sinned. There's a principle of God's justice revealed throughout Scripture, that a person is accountable only for his or her own sin. Ezekiel 18:20 says, "The person who sins will die. The son will not bear the punishment for the father's iniquity, nor will the father bear the punishment for the son's iniquity. The righteousness of the righteous will be upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked will be upon himself." The Bible is actually very clear that children stand innocent before God. Jesus said in Matthew 18:3, "Truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven." Notice that Jesus says that when we are converted, we become like children. The implication is that children are in good standing with God. Jesus follows up later in this discussion, saying of little ones, that their angels in heaven continually behold the face of my Father who is in heaven. Children are innocent, and God hears their prayers. The Apostle Paul gives us a view into his personal journey into accountability before God. In Romans 7:9, he says, "And I was once alive apart from the law. But when the commandment came, sin became alive, and I died." The law, including the 10 Commandments, was in existence approximately 1,500 years before the birth of Paul. Yet there was a point in Paul's life where he was alive to God apart from the law. When the commandment came, in other words, at the age Paul was accountable and this commandment applied to him, sin then became alive, and he died. What was true of Paul is applicable to every individual of the human race. We're each born into this world in fellowship with God. Then we grow up. At some point, we reach an adult maturity and partake of sin. Then we die. Then we're separated from God. As for children, they're safe. Nobody inherits the sins of Adam or of their parents. The lie is that we all inherit the original sin of Adam. The truth is that our just God only holds us accountable for the sins that we individually commit. The lie is that children are in trouble with God and in need of salvation. The truth is that children are in good standing with God, and He hears their prayers. Join us for our next episode, Hell is Real.
Targeting Truth, Spiritual GPS.